Hello everyone, and welcome to our first meeting at the GameTable while not being live. Today, I'd like to introduce everybody, or at least talk about, a recent obsession of mine, REPO. REPO is the 1 to 6 player game that requires players to retrieve, extract, profit, and of course, operate as a team. But if you've played the game, you know that never actually happens, while avoiding a whole manner of enemies that are all being thrown at you at once. And I will not be covering the whole list of enemies, as that's not really the point of this video, but if you would like to learn more about the enemies and the game in general, the wiki page will be down in the description of the video. However, today's video will be focusing on a more nuanced part of REPO, the lore. I had to pull that out at least once. For those who don't know, there is indeed lore to REPO, but it is not only not talked about as much, or noticed very often. There are a few videos out on the lore so far, but the best example that I have found of lore being talked about is on a Steam page by someone by the name of Wormweed. If you'd like to read their whole theory, I will also put that down in the description as well. It is a massive piece of literature. I would recommend reading it to really dig deep into the lore of REPO. However, I would like to create a small recap of Wormweed's theory before expanding on their ideas and trying to improve on them and add to them. Wormweed's theory centers on the idea that there was a massive disease that spread across the entirety of the world, the so-called R.E.P.O disease, in Wormweed's words, that killed off most of humanity. Those that were spared by the disease either ended up becoming semi-bots through making a deal with the evil, quote-unquote, AI taxman, or becoming one of the wandering entities that roamed the world. There is a lot more to this theory, as I've previously stated, so I would highly recommend going down in the description and reading more on the commentary that Wormweed has posted. It goes in depth on each character, each entity, etc. However, Wormweed themselves noted that there are a few discrepancies with this theory that poked a hole in the theory itself. As of this video recording date, I have not noticed a section that has been updated with these discrepancies, but I would like to note a few that I believe might be talked about. The first one being the Headman, Headstone, and the Rugrat statues. These statues are of some of the monsters that roam the world that we now explore as semi-bots. However, if the monsters were the last things alive before turning, how could they have created these statues themselves? Most likely the Headman couldn't have done it, as the Headman seems to have lost his mind completely and utterly with the clicking of the teeth and the seemingly aimless eyes that just roam the world. And the Rugrats are, to be quite frank, too destructive to actually build anything. And while some of the other monsters could theoretically be behind the buildings, I highly doubt any of them would take the time to build statues in Headman Manor for simply artistic purposes, unless there's more entities that we don't know about, but let's push that off for a little bit later. The second section includes multiple types of enemies appearing at once. Now, I know some people might blast back at this next fact as a game mechanic, or just to not think too much about it, but you did click on a theory video, not a lore video, so I'm going to include it anyways. While exploring the game, you have the random chance of coming across multiple groups of an enemy at once, the on-screen example being 3 bow ties at once. If, like Wormweed suggests, which I do believe, but I will get back to that, a disease evolved humans into these forms, then why would they all look the same? The disease theoretically should have a different effect in each person's body, so it should be an astronomically rare chance that 2 people get the disease and end up looking the same at the end, much like the 3 bow ties. And the final one that is not really covered by the Wormweed's theory is the non-human entities. And for this one, I'm going to be focusing more on the apex predator, but obviously there's a few more examples with like the gnomes, the chefs, etc. The apex predator, instead of looking like a human, looks more like a fluffy duck, albeit with razor-sharp teeth. If humanity were to evolve or change from the R.E.P.O disease, how could we possibly turn into small fluffy ducks? How could we change our entire genetic makeup to turn into glass gnomes? I'm sure it could happen thanks to the disease being something we've quote-unquote never seen in our world, but it seems unlikely that this can just happen to a biological life form. Obviously, there might be more examples of how the Wormweed's disease theory has some holes in it, but I do not believe it to be entirely incorrect. There is a lot of truth to what Wormweed has to say, and it is contained within the theory. That is why I plan to propose an addition to this theory. I won't name it for fear of being completely wrong, but I would like to suggest it nonetheless, since I do have a mic and I do have a voice. This theory that I would like to suggest is time and space travel. Oh, stop your booing. Shut up. I know. Ooh, space-time travel. Doesn't that just make everything easy to explain? Yeah, it does. My thought is that, as it stands, our world collided with another, or in this case, could be multiple others, and it led to our world drastically changing. Not only were there now new entities floating around, but there was an infectious disease, one could say the R.E.P.O disease, that got transferred to our world as well. Thanks to this combining of universes, we also got a ton of structures being brought into our world, some, like Swiftbroom, that contain magic not personally known to our world. But Knight, you might ask, where does this ability to combine universes come from? My guess, and I'm starting to hit tinfoil hat zones with this conspiracy theory, is that there is some sort of alien life contained within the Arctic. This life probably crash-landed thousands, if not millions of years ago, and ended up getting frozen in ice for, once again, thousands upon millions of years, which has now been found, obviously, by the Maganic Station, and is also evident by the creature leg found in the Arctic. Thanks to this alien technology, we were able to start opening doors between the universes and time zones without realizing the consequences that we would have. Now, I know this sounds crazy. I'm still believing I'm crazy as I'm writing this thing, but I would like to explain some things that make me believe this theory correct, at least on some level. The first item of interest is the globe item. And yep, I can hear it now. I'm starting off on something super small and super stupid, but I feel like it is important nonetheless. The globe item, while seemingly inconspicuous, doesn't seem to be a perfect match to what our Earth looks like. In fact, I even had one of my chatters and friends mention that this looks to be Africa, but in a really weird location. This, once again, could be wrong, but from what I see, it doesn't look normal and doesn't look like our Earth. The second item of interest is the hourglass item. Once again, another random item, but it is still important nonetheless. This hourglass item, when picked up, slows down time for anyone touching it. While it can be explained away as magic, it is still a point that, on some level, manipulating time is indeed a thing that can happen, and has already happened and been tested with in this universe, or at least in a different universe comparable to ours. The final item of interest is the calendar at the Maganic Station. This calendar marks the year 2097. However, when looking at the technology across the entirety of the station, it doesn't look like any new technology. In fact, it looks like technology from 2025 and or before our generation. So how could our technology not have evolved after nearly 70 years of being in production? Oh, and for those who might say that maybe the calendar was just left here, the calendar has been marked off, so it is suggested that the people were using this calendar up until the fatal R.E.P.O disease wiped out almost the entirety of humanity. And alongside some of the things that can quote-unquote prove this theory, prove being in quotes since, once again, this is a theory, there are some things that this theory also helps solve. The first item being, why are we collecting items? Thanks to this theory of mine, I'm going to assume that the taxman is sending us semi-bots out to collect this junk as a way of studying the spatial anomalies. The items collected could theoretically have space or time particles on them that the taxman could take off to study. This is also why when we kill an entity, we can actually get paid for selling its soul, as an entity's soul from another universe would definitely have some kind of space and time particles on them. The second thing it helps explains is the weird entities. And when I reference the weird entities, I reference things like the apex predator and the gnomes. Things that would have to change or mutate drastically for a human to become them. If the space-time theory holds, then it could simply be from an alternate universe that was dragged here by some sort of portal rift. This also explains the presence of duplicate entities, as they are from the same universe and of the same species being brought over to our world, much like humans are a species. These bow ties, these apex predators, these gnomes would also be part of a singular species. And the final one, and this is going to sound dumb, the final one being the gas station's checklist. Now, I know this is super small and niche, but throughout the entirety of R.E.P.O, you can find lists like these on the floors and tables. This one, in particular, was taken from Headman Manor. However, the list itself describes things that might happen at a gas station. A toilet, cashier's desk, cash register, not anything that can be found in Headman Manor. My guess is that these papers are duplicated pieces of paper that are thrown across the entirety of the now drastically changing world thanks to the time/spatial rifts. Or they could just be the developers not wanting to create yet another asset and just copying and pasting this paper everywhere. I'm going to choose not to believe that, and I'm going to continue on. Now, obviously this theory doesn't even cover half of the repo iceberg, and I am sure there are a lot of things I missed. Who is the Playcom company, and why do their names seemingly appear on a ton of boxes in the Magenic Station? Why is there a human frozen in ice item that we can find and collect? Who is the headman, and what is his significance to the story? And to be honest with you, I don't know. I know this sounds super disappointing to hear as a theorist, but sometimes we simply do not have the answers. As Simiwork has stated, they are still working on the lore and building it little by little. And I'm hoping that the new museum area adds a ton of new lore details, because that would be fantastic, please. Oh my gosh, Simiwork, please. As of this moment, though, we are simply trying to jump the gun and just try to guess what direction the story might take. That does not mean that we shouldn't keep trying, though. As the game continues to get updates, we can continue to build the pieces and put them together and maybe rework pieces. Maybe the piece that we originally thought was in one spot needs to be moved to another, or heck, thrown out entirely because it's now no longer necessary. We can keep making discussions on that basically border on insanity, so we can just have a fun-loving lore community that just comes together and has a blast talking about a game that we all know and love. Now, we get to the fun part of the video, at the end of the video. For those interested in these types of videos, please hit... Sorry, I have trouble saying cringy things like this. For those that are interested in these types of videos, please consider subscribing to the channel so as not to miss out on the next REPO lore theory video and any other theory video that I might have in the future. If anyone has any suggestions for theory videos, please send them my way through the comments, and if you have any feedback on the theory, or how the video was presented or edited, please, once again, also let me know in the comments. I am a self-taught creator. I would be happy to hear everyone's comments and suggestions, as, once again, I learned from you guys, and I learned from many other people as well. However, obviously, I can't promise I will follow through on all of your suggestions, as I will probably pick and choose what I think is best for the channel and what looks best. Now, as well as creating lore videos, I do also stream on Twitch and YouTube every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. EST till 11 p.m. EST. Though, if I'm truthfully honest, sometimes we go a little bit longer than I probably should, but it's fine. Now, please note, though, we are an 18-plus stream, so I do wish that you would respect that. Also, you can join our GameTable Discord in the link tree below. And this last point is a message to Wormweed. Thank you so much for your theory. Not only did it inspire me to make something of my own, but it also gave me a lot of ideas on what to add to this series. It also fired me up for the lore of REPO. It made me love and adore this game more than it has ever wanted me to get into. And heck, the game's already been out for barely a month, and I'm already this deep into the game. I'm super excited to see where this game takes me. And also, Wormweed, once again, if you ever want to talk to me on or off stream or any of the above about REPO lore, please hit me up through either Instagram DMs, link in the link tree, or the Discord DMs. Once again, thank you so much for your work, and I appreciate you greatly. And for everyone else, please, once again, go check out their Steam page down below. It is an amazing piece of work, and they have done so much time and so much effort into it. I really suggest reading it and giving it a like and whatever else you can. Show a bunch of love and respect to Wormweed. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really look forward to discussing more REPO lore and, hey, maybe some other game lore. Once again, give me some suggestions in the comments down below. Bye for now.